What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we're going to talk about the tragic collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge after a container ship crashed into it. I'm sure you're aware of the situation. We haven't gotten a chance to talk about it, but it is believed now that the crew, the people that fell into the water, was a pothole filling crew, and it's not 8 of them fell in the water, 2 were recovered. It looks like 6 of them lost their lives. 6 workers who went to work to provide for their families, never expecting something like this, and they lost their lives doing their job during just an accident, a tragic accident. But let's dive in. I'll put links in the description box for the stories that I'm about to read, and I'm not going to read the entire stories because they're long, but I'm going to kind of get into the details of what happened. So here we go. This one is according to NBC News, and it came out yesterday at 3:20 in the morning. Here we go. Baltimore. A major Baltimore bridge collapsed like a house of cards early Tuesday after it was struck by a container ship, sending 6 people to their deaths in the dark waters below and closing one of the country's busiest ports. By nightfall, the desperate search for 6 people who were working on the bridge and vanished when it fell apart had become a grim search for bodies. We do not believe that we were going to find any of these individuals still alive, Coast Guard Rear Admiral Shannon N. Gilreath said. Jeffrey Pritzker, Executive Vice President of Bronner Builders, said earlier that one of his workers had survived. He did not release their names. Up until then, Maryland Governor Wes Moore had held out hope that the missing people might be found, even as law enforcement warned that the frigid water and the fact that there had been no sign of them since 1:30 in the morning when the ship struck the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Moore expressed heartbreak after officials suspended the search for survivors. Our heart goes out to the families, he said. I can't imagine how painful today has been for these families, how painful these hours have been for these families. It was a crushing blow to the loved ones of the missing men who had waited for hours at the Royal Farms convenience store near the entrance of the bridge for word of their fate. The tragic chain of events began early Tuesday when the cargo ship Dali notified authorities that it had lost power and issued a mayday moments before the 984-foot vessel slammed into a bridge support at a speed of 8 knots, which is about 9 miles per hour. Moore declared a state of emergency while rescue crews using sonar detected at least 5 vehicles in the frigid 50-foot deep water, 3 passenger cars, a cement truck, and another vehicle of some kind. Authorities do not believe anyone was inside the vehicles. Investigators quickly concluded that it was an accident and not an act of terrorism. Again, tragic accident. These guys were out there just doing their job, filling the potholes. Mayday comes in. There's not a lot of time to clear the bridge, and it's just painful to know that, you know, life can get snatched from you, and it doesn't even need to be anything you did. It's just, you never know, right? When your time's up, your time's up. And this is just heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. I'm going to read another updated article that came out 53 minutes ago. This is off of CNN's website. I'll share this one in the description box as well. First responders worked quickly to get people off of the bridge after first Mayday call, governor says. So after the Dali ship sent out its first Mayday signal, first responders leapt into action to both move people off of the bridge and prevent other cars from entering it, Maryland's governor said. They were also notifying workers who were part of the construction crew on the bridge to leave, Governor Wes Moore said. That was on Wednesday. As officials learn more about what happened in the moments before the collision and collapse. One of the survivors, who I had the opportunity to speak with, one of the things he mentioned to me was that he was moving off of the bridge and literally saw the bridge fall right after he moved off. It was because it was a first responder who was telling him to move off of the bridge. That was according to Governor Moore. The governor said the ongoing investigation will reveal more of what happened and how those responders communicated with the workers. He said this particular worker who survived said he heard the warning audibly that the officer was telling him to move off. So there was questions about whether or not folks were trying to get those workers off the bridge, and apparently they were trying to get them off the bridge, but it was just too late. Officials recovered bodies of 2 missing bridge workers. Officials have recovered the bodies of 2 of the missing workers who were on the Francis Scott Key Bridge when it collapsed. the head of the Maryland State Police said Wednesday. Colonel Ronald L. Butler Jr. said that shortly before 10 a.m., divers found a red pickup truck in about 25 feet of water. Divers recovered 2 victims of this tragedy trapped within the vehicle. He said Maryland State Police notified the families of those found about an hour ago. Their names were given as Alejandro Hernandez Fuentes from Mexico and Dorlian Ronial Castillo Cabrera from Guatemala. The workers who were filling potholes on the bridge at the time of the incident were from Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, officials said. Butler Jr. confirmed that both men whose bodies were found today were working for the construction company. One was identified by the driver's license in his pocket and the other by a fingerprint. An inspector overseeing the work was among those who fell into the water also. An inspector who was contracted by the state of Maryland with an engineering firm overseeing work was among victims that fell into the water following the Key Bridge collapse, according to Maryland Transportation Secretary Paul G. Wiederfield. Maryland governor says the investigation continues into what took place. Westmore said investigations continue on what happened on the ship, and there are no declarative answers on possible power challenges or issues on the Dahlia. The thing that we do know is that we had documented that there were power challenges as the freight was coming up on the bridge, Moore said. The Mayday call came in because of the power issues and the lack of ability to steer the vessel. We've also have don't play bridge engineer online. Baltimore mayor asks people not to spread misinformation. Baltimore's mayor asked for people to have a little bit of decency and respect when it comes to online discourse about the fatal bridge collapse. Don't spread misinformation. Don't play bridge engineer online or in the media. Remember that these are people's family members who have lost their lives simply trying to make transit better for the rest of us, Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott said. The head of Maryland State Police announced earlier that dive teams recovered the bodies of 2 people in the river on Wednesday. At least 4 other people are unaccounted for and presumed dead, the Coast Guard said. Lastly, the government will pursue funds from anybody liable for negligence or wrongdoing, Maryland Senator says. If anyone is found liable in the events that led to the collapse of the Baltimore Key Bridge, they will be pursued to add funds to the cost sharing in rebuilding, U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland said Wednesday evening. As the NTSB, which is the National Transportation Safety Board, conducts its review, we'll have a better idea of exactly what happened, and if anybody is liable for negligence or wrongdoing, you can be assured that we will be pursuing those funds as part of the cost share, he said at a news briefing. Tragic accident. And I think the takeaway is to remember that it's just a job. And what is important is your family and the relationships that you've built. Your job, it's just a means to pay the bills and survive. It is not your everything. And so your loyalty should not be to your job. It should be to your coworkers, your friends, your family. Your loyalty should be to the relationships that you've built and not to the job. Because I guarantee you that contractor is going to hire 8 more people to continue doing work. And yeah, it's going to suck for a little bit. They'll have probably a memorial, maybe contribute to the funerals, maybe. But business goes on as usual. And these families are left dealing with this tragic loss for the rest of their lives. And so remember where to place your heart with those that matter the most. My name's Eric. You're watching Union Minded. Let's keep in mind the fight's not left and right. It's up and down. It's going to take solidarity to win always. Each one teach one. Get out there and reach one. And remember, there could be no union without you and I front and center. Let's go.